Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, where we help dads create a healthier and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval. I am your host. Thank you for listening in today. I much appreciate it. Today we're going to be chatting about self-worth. Yes, self-worth. I was prompted today to talk about this from our men's divorced dads group meeting we just got done with not long ago, and I was struck by it was just interesting. We've been doing this long enough now that we've got a lot of men that have been through now the divorce process or out of it, maybe months or some down the road a year or two, and also obviously new men that are coming in to the process or coming into the group and just going through the process. And so I was noticing today that there seems to be, well, there doesn't seem to be, there is, and I experienced this as well, this challenge to our self-worth when we go through this difficult process of divorce. But then what I was also noticing today is that the men that have gone through it, that have taken the time to do the work, have really come to grow in their self-worth. So that's why today's show is called Self-Worth. Maybe I'm not I'm not that bad, which is kind of the thoughts that was the thought I had when I was going through mine, like, what is wrong with me, or what's going on, and why doesn't she want to be with me, or this or that, or something else. But before we dive into this, I do want to remind everybody that we have the divorce quiz up on the website. We're getting a lot of people taking it and going through it. There's these stages that we go through in the divorce that we talk about a lot of the times, that we talk about in the workshops as well as the classes. And this divorce quiz is a really great tool to help you kind of gauge where you are at in the process compared with other people who have gone through it. And this self-worth part is one of them that we go through, and is one of the parts of the assessment also. So jump on, it's at thedivorcedadvocate.com, and just click on the tab that is divorce quiz. Go through it. It's going to take about 15-20 minutes, and it'll immediately spit out some results for you. And then if you want, we can talk about those results in a private session as well. There's a link in there as well that you'll get emailed. So take advantage of that. It's an awesome resource and tool to kind of gauge, especially if you're just considering or going through the process now, kind of gauge where you're at and how you're feeling about these things, and be able to monitor those and really put together a plan for where you want to go. So self-worth, maybe I'm not so bad after all. So, as you're going through this process and adjusting to this, let's call it a crisis. It is a crisis, right? You're going to start to feel better about yourself. And that's what I was just mentioning about the guys that I'm noticing that are through the process and kind of out the back end of it a little bit more. They've gone through some of the steps to this. The first one being dealing with all of those emotions that come up, and understanding what's happening with those, and creating a way to learn to deal with them in a healthy manner. The next part being understanding what your process was and what your part of the ending of the marriage or the relationship was. And then one of these next ones is really learning to and assessing your self-worth and building back up that self-worth and learning that. So what we're going to talk about today is 11 steps to creating a greater self-esteem or self-worth. And we're going to talk about these specifically and give you some ideas around how to do that. And the first one being is you need to decide and make a decision that you want to make the change. So if you're listening to this, I think you've probably already started that process. You may have been seeking out a therapist or a coach or a friend or somebody or someplace to get some input into this process, into what's going on. I know that it's an overwhelming process because not only you're dealing with all these feelings and emotions that are coming up, that you've got kids, You don't know, it's uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen through the divorce process. Hopefully, a lot of us haven't gone through this more than one time, so we just don't know what to expect. So that's what the divorce advocate community is all about, is being here and sharing our stories and being a place of support and resources for you. So, but making, engaging in that is the first step, engaging in making that change. And now there's this concept, though, that you just do that in your mind, and that's absolutely not true. They're starting to find, and research is starting to support that your actions will actually lead you to that change happening, and then your personality will change based upon you taking the action. So that first step is that critical one, is making up your mind and actually taking the action to do it. So sign up for one of the workshops, sign up for one of the group meetings and get involved in it. Sign up for one of the free sessions to just talk about what you've got going on, and maybe strategize on a roadmap or a process for which you can start down this road, or just be able to get out and share your feelings. At the very least, find people around you to support you in doing that. If you don't have the means for a therapist, there's also a therapist or a coach. There's also 12-step groups and other kinds of meetings, churches, et cetera, that offer lots of opportunity. But make that decision that you are going to do that. That is absolutely key, because the rest of the 10 steps we talk about, if you haven't made that decision, it is not going to it just won't work. Number 2, change the way you look at yourself. All right, this can be a little bit challenging, right? Because here's the thing, 50% of what your self-worth or your self-image is just hereditary. You've just inherited it. And the other 50% is learned through your childhood and early adults, relationships, and life. And actually, for me, that's good news, right? Because you didn't have control over it, right? Like I always talk about the fact that I was codependent, and it wasn't one day that I just woke up and I saw an advertisement on TV about being codependent. not like when you're trying to change your lifestyle and you want to get fit and you see a commercial, you decide to go get. I didn't just decide, well, I think I want to be I want to start being codependent, right? This stuff just happened. You didn't sign up for it. You didn't decide to do this. It's partly inherited. It's partly learned. And this is just kind of the way that you've become. And that's okay. But now you're aware of it. So now you have the opportunity to do something and make some changes around that. So in order to make that change, I'm going to try to give one brief tip that I've used personally myself, and that I've coached clients in using, that other people have found effective in helping you through this and working on improving your self-worth and your self-image. And this one is, write down every morning. So we talk about journaling all the time on the show here, and what a positive of that is. Write down the first thing in the morning, if during your journaling, or even if this might be your first thing to start journaling, and do this as you're beginning to journaling, and just write 10 things that you like about yourself. Now, okay, I'm going to be honest, sometimes 10 might be challenging to start out, right? Until you start building up that muscle of appreciating things about yourself. So start writing, and that can be just, I like the fact that I am making an effort to journal and write 10 things about that I like about myself. And keep doing that. Keep doing that we talk about the 21 days to create a habit, and 90 days to create a lifestyle change. Keep doing that every day for 21 days. It'll become a habit. And if you can keep that up, then maybe you can expand your journaling also and start to write more about the things that you like about yourself, instead of just making a list. So that's number 2. Number 3, read positive things about yourself aloud to others. All right. So this kind of goes in conjunction with that 10 items, and writing the 10 items down that you like about yourself. And it also goes in conjunction with that first one, which is find a community of people that you can surround yourself with, and not necessarily people, but somebody, even if it's just a person or a friend that you can talk to and communicate with, because it's critically important. You can't silo yourself. You can't just be by yourself in this. You need to have some support. So you can take that list, and it might be an awkward conversation in the beginning the first time, but just say, I want to read this list to you, so that what you're doing is you're hearing it out loud from yourself. Okay. So it's one thing writing, it's tactile. You're putting it on paper. You're processing it through your thoughts and through your mind. But this next part is audibly hearing yourself say that. So what you're doing is you're reprogramming your mind, because that 50% where we learned in childhood or early adulthood, that's, we don't have some sense of self-worth, or our self-worth is low, came from some external influence. And that may have been somebody saying stuff to you verbally. So what you're doing here is you are reprogramming your neurons to believe what it is that you're hearing. So by saying that out loud, it is a positive. I'll give a second tip to this one. This is a bonus. All right. Another way to do this, and this has worked. I really like this, and I've used this for years and years, and I've found it to be phenomenal. I've had many clients that have used this too. It is just a really easy, passive way to do this. And that is, when you go to sleep at night, find some headphones that are comfortable if you're rolling around on your pillow, and then tune into, there's all these YouTube channels where you can do self-affirmations. And it's literally somebody saying positive affirmations to you while you sleep. And so what you're doing is you're taking all of these years, or maybe like decades, right, of these negative affirmations you were getting that have created these challenges to your self-worth, that 50%, and you're reprogramming it by somebody saying it to you, positive ones, over and over again. And your subconscious does not know the difference. Your subconscious doesn't know that it's not your parent saying somebody, or your spouse, or your child. It just subconscious hears those positive affirmations. And I'll tell you, it helps with sleep. It helps. You are going to wake up refreshed. It is an absolutely amazing way to do it. So that's also a great way to do it. In addition to, don't not do the ones where you're saying them to yourself, because what you're doing there is you're helping to reparent yourself by saying to yourself what the things are that you do like. So that's number 3. Number 4, re-examine your relationships and change the ones that are not serving you. So this is a time where you have one relationship that may be not necessarily fully falling by the wayside, because you'll still be co-parenting with your soon-to-be ex or your ex, but there's going to be other relationships also that it's a good time to just take a look at and see. Some of this is going to happen without your prompting. And when I say that, I mean some of the friendships that you've had are going to either change or just go away completely during this process. And this is one of the things we talk about often in the group meeting, especially with some of the men that are already finished with the divorce process, and they're starting life post-divorce and wondering, oh, where did my friends go? And now I'm single, and now my married friends don't want to hang out with me. And now this all feels kind of weird. And so it's a really good time to be analyzing. And this goes for analyzing family too, okay? Because family is part of that input, that external influence I mentioned, that is having an impact on your feelings of self-worth. So analyzing family in this is as important as anybody else that's in your relation or in your life. And you've heard the phrase, you're the sum total of the 3 people that you surround yourself with. So maybe use that as kind of a litmus test or a measuring stick for kind of where you're at in relationships and the quality of relationships that you've surrounded yourself with, and then make the necessary adjustments that are going to be beneficial and healthy for you in this process. Again, this can be challenging with family because it's tough to look at and say, wow, my family has really contributed to a lot of these challenges to my self-worth, and I need to surround myself, particularly in this process, with people that are going to lift me up, that are going to support me and help me through this process. And that may not always be your family. So if that's the case, there's, again, the 12-step groups, there's Codependence Anonymous, there's Al-Anon, there can be any one of these 12-step groups that are out there that can help you kind of look at your family of origin issues that are going on and assess those, and have a systematic process for really diving into those. So that's step 4. Step 5, get rid of the negative self-thoughts in your head. Now, that sounds so much easier than it actually is. It's real easy to say that, but the first step in that is taking stock of your thoughts on a regular basis. And I heard this story once, and it was really fascinating to me. And it was, well, if you had, let's use, for instance, a circumstance where, say, somebody wasn't texting you, or say your wife or girlfriend wasn't texting you, and you start having these thoughts about why that's happening. Is she out, with somebody? Is she cheating on me? Does she not care about me? Does she have no respect for me? And like, we start going through and ruminating and getting these crazy thoughts about stuff. And then we found out her cell phone died, or she lost her cell phone, or she got in an accident, or whatever it may be, that have prevented her from talking to us. And then we just go, oh, okay. But we fail to realize that we've like taking this crazy train ride in our heads on all of these scenarios. And had that been somebody that was an external influence, let's say a therapist, that was telling you all of this stuff externally, like we were telling ourselves in our mind, we'd say, that person is absolutely unfit to be giving me any advice. I need to stop listening to them completely and get rid of that therapist or coach or friend or whatever, and go find a new one. Except when we do it to ourselves, we just listen to it. And so being that conscious observer of your thoughts is that first step to stop listening to those negative thoughts. And the way that you do that is just when you get something that comes in that's uncomfortable, stop and say, is this really true? Is this really true? Is this thought really true? The next thing to say is this my thought? Is this something that I believe? Like I was talking about the codependency. Like, do I really think that I'm not respected? Or is that something that was, I learned somewhere else, or I learned from an external influence? So just be the conscious observer of your thought processes, so that then you can stop those those thoughts. And maybe not stop is the good word, but maybe let them pass, right? Because we're going to still have this stuff come up. So you want to come up, and if you identify, look, this is not my thought. This is not, I'm not respected. I'm respected, or this crazy thought, you can just let it pass and go away. But you're the one in control. You've controlled it, and you have the ability to let that pass, or take stock into it, and then do an analysis of it if necessary. The point being is you have the control over that negative thought. So that's number 5. Number 6, write positive notes to yourself and read these affirmations. So these are a good one. And so maybe I should have upped this on the list a little bit around that 2 and 3, where I was talking about writing the I like statements about yourself, the 10, and then also saying them writing the notes also. And so what we're doing, again, we're reprogramming the brain through a different medium. So we're doing it tactily and by writing, we're doing it by listening, and now we're doing it by vision, visually, right? We're listening, or we're seeing, and we're reading this self affirmation, and it can be whatever it is. You can part of those 10 lists you can read again at the end of the day, or if you want to take some of those little sticky note cards and write those 10 on sticky note cards and put them on your mirror. I've got a big giant mirror in my bathroom, so I can put just a million sticky notes and I can read through them. I've got signs that are up around those so that I'm reminded to look at those and read those every day, and remind myself of what those affirmations are. So again, you're reprogramming those neurons in your brain to fire a different way, a positive way in thinking about your self-worth and your self-esteem. So number 7, open yourself up to hearing positive comments from others. Wow, and there's a reason this one's a little further down the list. And this was challenging for me, because if you don't hear those a lot when you're growing up, and you don't get positive reinforcement or positive affirmation from people, when you do, it's really uncomfortable. And one of the things that we do in the class, the Dad's Divorce Blueprint, is we do this exercise where we share positive things that we have seen and that we've come to know about each of the members in the class, because oftentimes we don't see this stuff ourselves, but it's readily obvious to other people that are listening and watching you, all the positive things that you bring to not only the class but life and your children and everything else. So we share a time where we talk about that. And so this is a really important thing, because again, hearing this from somebody else, and that's where it's good to have this community. So again, if you haven't signed up and if you haven't come to any one of the Divorced Dads group meetings, come, because we're talking about that too. And there's a lot, that we share when we see positive things. We always call out positive things with each other when we see them, when somebody does something well. So somebody handles a great situation, somebody's putting an immense amount of effort into something. We're always commending each other and giving props and kudos to each other through that process. And so again, it's a great space to be, because we're all going through that this challenging process together, and those of us who aren't have been through it, and so we can see things as well and share some of our insights as well. So but again, at the very minimum, have a friend or have a group that you go to that you can ask for some of the positive reinforcement. And oftentimes you're probably not going to even have to ask. People are going to see it. And the fact that you're showing up and you're making the effort is a huge, huge thing, that you're going to get that positive reinforcement from others. Number 8, make a specific change in your behavior. So what do I mean about a specific change in your behavior? That can be as simple as what I talked about in the beginning, which is making that decision to change, and then actually making the behavioral change. So that could be, I'm going to journal every morning, or like I said, that could be I'm going to write 10 things I like about myself every morning. So actually take the change. And I talked about that. I jumped ahead a little bit. I talked about that in conjunction with number 1, because it goes with number 1, but it is further down the list. And I should group those back together also, because just not making it in your mind, actually taking the initiative and doing the action is critical. But just start with something small. Don't change your whole life, okay? And don't make a bunch of changes all at once. Start with one small thing, 21 days, make it a habit, 90 days becomes a lifestyle change, and then start something new. So start the 10 the 10 affirmations that you write every day, do it for 21 days, then start something new. That next one can be, I'm giving you a big list here. Okay. So let me just reiterate, don't do this all at once. Okay. You've got a ton of going on. You're not looking to make wholesale change all at once. You'll make yourself crazier doing it. Take one thing at a time, 21 days, do it, implement it. Some stuff will work. Some stuff you'll keep, some stuff you'll throw out, but then just keep doing something new and make that change each time. All right, that's number 8. Number 9, and this came up this morning in our group meeting, which I had an immense amount of respect for one of the gentlemen that brought this up, and this was give and get more hugs. So it came up today in the context of what our love languages are. And those of you not familiar with what love languages are, there's this concept that we have different ways in which we give and we accept love. And there's 5 different ways. One of them is physical touch. And so they have a quiz. You can go online. If you just Google love languages, you can do a quiz and kind of find what your top love languages are. And physical touch is one of the love languages. So there's a large percentage of people out there, male and female, that physical touch is one of the top. I think for me, it's my second, is a very important thing in life, is having physical touch. And we're just wired as human beings to need physical touch. There's a lot of research around this with infants that are touched and held and skin to skin contact, and then infants that were perhaps in orphanages and not held and not loved and didn't get that physical touch and the impacts that they've had. The physical touch always has a positive influence and impact. So giving and getting hugs is really, really huge. I like to hug. I'm a hugger. That's just me. But again, if you can surround yourself with people, for me, I have 3 daughters and it's great. I give them a hug every single morning, and I give them a hug every single night before they go to bed. And that's a bare minimum for me, because I want them to know, that it's okay to have and need that physical touch, and we all need it. And that's something that might be a challenge right now in going through this process, this divorce process, that you may have had somebody that was there for you to be able to do that. And now you don't have that person there anymore, and you still long and you need it. Some of the other things along this line that maybe if you don't have somebody that you feel comfortable that you can just give and receive hugs from on a regular basis, is going and doing something like getting a massage. So you do still have that physical touch of somebody that helps you with those feelings, and with those feelings of self-worth and feeling like you have some connection with somebody. Now, it's okay. It's a paid connection, right? But it is somebody that cares enough that they've dedicated their lives to making people feel better through massage therapy, and they're trained to do that. So that does also help and get the same ends that you're looking for by doing that. It's just through a different means, and that's perfectly all right to do it that way as well. All right, that's number 9. Number 10 is work hard at meaningful communication with others. So this is important, critically important, because during this process, in having meaningful communication with others, that's where you're going to start getting that feedback that I just talked about in our divorced dads group meeting, where you're getting meaningful feedback from somebody that's looking at your circumstance externally and is not in it. Now, again, sometimes friends aren't the best ones to give some of this, but still, even if you're having meaningful communication with them and having heartfelt conversations about stuff, that you're going to get some good feedback on that. And this dives in, and I may as well just lump this into the number 11, which is our final one, which is find a therapist or a coach or both to help you through this meaningful conversation and talking about these things, because then starting to communicate about these things is going to be one of those next steps that I talked about. So I talked about dealing with the emotions, understanding your part in this process and in the divorce, learning to feel better self-worth and positive feelings about yourself. Learning to communicate then is another one, or communicate more effectively and have some meaningful communication with people is going to be the next one. Because if you're going through this process, if this relationship has ended, there's been some sort of breakdown in communication. Whose fault that may have been, who knows? But it has not been to the level where we were able to continue with the relationship. So there is always some amount of increased ability to learn to communicate in a better way, in a better form, that can happen through this process. And so that's why it's key to make sure to start to develop that now. And that's why it's good to do it with a therapist and a coach who are trained, have seen this a lot, can point things out, but can also help you through this process, as opposed to a friend, which is good to listen to, or family members, good to listen and get their feedback on stuff, but aren't always neutral and always are going to have a bias on this. The other thing is they're not trained to help you learn to be more effective in your communication. And one of those, and I'll close with this, because it's absolutely a life-changing way of conducting your ways of communication, and that's nonviolent communication. And if you Google that, and I'll put this stuff in the show notes also. Nonviolent communication, it's a way of communicating that is more effective than anything that I've ever found out there. And it's really fantastic, and it allows to open up channels with others. And this can work in not only in your personal life with people, but in your professional life also. And it's a non-confrontational way of sharing what it is you're feeling, stating what your needs are, and then opening up that communication with somebody else in order for it to be a positive net result of the communication, as opposed to a lot of times what we get into, which is, those conversations that end up being like loops of going over the same stuff without any kind of resolution or arguments or hurt feelings, and saying stuff that we shouldn't have, or somebody saying stuff that hurts us. This is just an absolute amazing way to mitigate any and all of that stuff. It's called nonviolent communication. And if you haven't heard of it, if you've got a therapist, if you've got a coach, chat with them about it as well. They more than likely have heard about it. And maybe you are or not in that place to start working on and talking about this. I can't imagine there's ever a bad time to start working on it, because it is a truly remarkable tool that can impact your life so incredibly positively in the future. And also with your kids, communicating with your kids. I've taught it to my daughters, and have and we've worked through learning how to do that too. And it's a great effective tool for them as they grow up, and mine are teens, and learning how to communicate better with their peers and teach their peers. It just proliferates in with more people. And it's something that we're not taught growing up. At least I wasn't taught, and I know a lot of the men I talk with weren't taught on how to effectively communicate with other people. So those are 10 and 11. Work hard at meaningful communication with others, and find a therapist or a coach to help. So those are the 7 steps. Self-worth. You're not as bad as you thought, or what was the stop? Maybe I'm not so bad after all, right? You're not. I mean, this is a great time of reflection. We are broken open. I commend the fact that you're here and that you're listening to this. If you listened through this far, absolutely amazing. We're going to have some more workshops coming up that are based upon the Dad's Divorce Blueprints class that is also coming up in August 22nd, I think, is the next class that's starting in the next 6 week class. And then the Divorce Dads, or the divorce quiz on the website. Check that out. Get a gauge of where you're at, even if you're already divorced and you're listening to this, where you're at compared to some other people. And let's sit down and let's chat about it. So lastly, if you have found some value in this, please share with other divorced dads or even women that you know, because the women in our lives also have brothers and they have sons that may be going through a divorce. So share this with everybody that you know, the divorce advocate community, so that everybody can be spreading this out to more and more divorced or divorcing dads, so that we can get them the help that they need. And we'll just be doing a service. We'll be paying it forward to everybody that's that's going through this process. Like our pages, share the pages, write a comment. Comments help immensely, as well as reviews help immensely on any one of the podcast platforms that you might be listening to as well. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk with you next week.